Good morning, sinners. I'm kidding. Yeah, I mean, I'm not religious at all, but I understand the connection between politics, religion, and science. And so it's interesting the fact that I can connect it all and that you can connect it all if you choose to and not be so compartmentalized. Because compartmentalization is why people are in the situation they're in. They don't understand how everything is connected, and so they uh, they just kind of do what they do. But I feel a lot better. I mean, I'll tell you what. After experiencing that virus yet again, because our environment is very dynamic, and also experiencing my menses in the process as well. Um, and I've, dealt with the constipation and creating diamonds in my gut. Then I made the connection between geothermal and biothermal activation sequences, and then why it is that the earth can produce beautiful diamonds and humans can produce something like that, but not really, because it's not really the same thing. But it is because a lot of pressure and heat and all of that does create constipation. And so that's what explains that constipation sequence in the beginning of the J juice when you first do it, because that's a lot of pressure and a lot of heat that is being introduced to the body, which is not a bad thing, but it's how the body is really taking a lot of nutrients from your poop and taking everything out and applying it where it couldn't apply it before. Because when you are activating latent viruses and you're making up for lost time and lost evolution because of suppressed viral energy, then yeah, the body is going to maximize its ability to take all the nutrients that before you weren't using. And so it's just been like, festering in your gut. And when it's festering in your gut, then yes, it sends off crazy messages. And that's why we have cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, and death in our society because of all the glitchy programming in a person's gut. Okay, so yeah, so then the biothermal activation sequence is the same thing as geothermal because, yeah, the volcanoes, the heat, the sulfur, the methane, and then you have the blood and the lava, and blood runs in your veins. The lava runs through its veins when it's being spewed out from the middle of the center of the earth through disturbances in the geological formations, plate tectonics, the space, universe, all the different seasons, the sun, the moon, the stars out there all have some kind of influence on volcanoes and also land formations, okay? Because there was a lot of energy in the beginning of time when Earth was being created. Now you can go back to the whole biblical and Genesis and look at that, or look at, Disney's depiction in Fantasia. And he goes through the birth of Earth and then all the little, the Greek mythology and all of that. And so Fantasia it's an old movie that kind of gives you an outline of the beginning of mankind, so to speak, in a very like Cliff Notes version, in a cartoon version. Okay. And then you see like in sacred geometry, the trees and the lungs have a lot of relationship, of course, because that's the respiration, the breathing of our society is trees, and your lungs as well. And then I realized that the brain, like I knew that walnuts kind of look like your brain, and there's other foods that may look like your brain, but when you take your intestines, okay, and then you wrap them and do whatever, and you can actually fold them in such a way where it looks like the brain, that's your second brain. Your gut is your second brain. And so we have a lot of people with a lot of gut issues, diverticulitis, they have colon cancer, what else they have? I don't know, colitis, A lot of digestive issues. And it's right near the uterus for females, or for, I don't know, for women or people with a uterus. Okay, I'm trying to be politically correct here, but it's not easy. I haven't figured out how to use that language like that. So yeah, so your intestines is your second brain, and it holds the microbiome. Okay, it holds the viruses, the parasites, the protozoa, the proteins, the fungus, and the bacteria. And they also send messages to make sure that everything is like printing correctly, like a 3D printer. And so when you have messed up gut and you're getting intestines cut out because you have some kind of intestinal cancer, colon cancer, all this cancer stuff, which is another entity trying to take over your body, then you're taking away parts of your intelligence. You're taking away parts of your survival. You're cutting your lifespan short. Okay? And so when people do not trigger their second lines of defense, which is a diarrhea and the barfing, and then replace those electrolytes being used during that process in a proper way, then they are messing with their second brain. So your second brain influences your first brain, but everyone knows about the first brain, which is this, right? But your first brain is your gut. And that's the most overlooked. That's the most that people, when they have gastrointestinal issues, they want to take Imodium and they want to stop the diarrhea and stop this, and they don't understand salt or electrolytes. And so they wait till their body is so depleted, then they get hauled off to the hospital to get rehydrated and stabilized through an intravenous, and then they're back, back at home again, all happy, but never understanding their first brain, which is their gut. And so this is how the system controls people's incline and decline, is when you are constantly going to the hospital and to the doctor to have somebody poke and prod at your second brain, your first brain, whatever. And so that's the most overlooked. The most important part of your whole immune system is your gut. And it's, and telling people that, they're like, yeah, whatever. And so I just say, okay, whatever. Do what you want. And so, yeah, there's the microbiome, the macrobiome. And the macrobiome is out there in your community, everyone exhibiting their microbiome. And your microbiome is everything that's in your gut and how either balanced or unbalanced it is. And you can tell when someone has an unbalanced gut because they're aging and degrading, and they also are fighting cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, addictions. You name it, they are dealing with it, and they have an unbalanced gut. And so that's how you know someone's with an unbalanced gut, because they're aging. That's the first and foremost. So, and then, yeah, so when the universe, the macro level, is your cellular thermodynamics at the micro level, the sun, moon, and stars, and nebulas, black holes, asteroids, comets, all have factors that make up the biodiversity and life on different planets. Okay? And so all of the universe, the stars, the moon, the sun, all of that, they give off the viruses, the acids, the image. Okay, what is image? Electrical impulses, matter, acids, and gases. That's all out there in the universe. You look at the sun, it's one huge cell, one huge virus. Gamma rays are intelligence. Okay, and then you have all the planets that are in there orbiting, just like, protons, neutrons, electrons, subatomically and atomically. And then you also have things that are subatomically at your protein levels. I mean, bacteria, there's like the three domains of life is archaea, eukaryotes, and bacteria. And they're all, nucleuses that are enveloped in a subatomic or are enveloped in a subatomic protein that acts like the sun, moon, and stars out there in the galaxies. Okay? And so then you see that then those are run by the viruses, because viruses have the DNA. That's why you have DNA, because the viruses run it. Viruses can be very microscopic, obviously, and they can be very macroscopic. You look at a person and what they're doing and saying, they're run by viruses that are programmed in a specific way. Okay? I mean, there's so much correlation to like everything. And so anyways, I said the sun, moon, and stars. Okay, so the religion when it comes to heaven and hell, how to do it. Okay, and how to do it if you know how to characterize evolution when you're alive. How to do. Okay, the religion when it comes to heaven and hell is how you characterize evolution when you're alive. I hate when I don't write things correctly because I'm doing a... okay, hold on a second. I know I need to proofread this stuff before I go on here, but that's okay. But, all right. So, heaven and hell. Heaven and hell has nothing to do with death. Yeah. The religion, when it comes to heaven and hell, is how you characterize evolution when you're alive. Okay? Because hell, when you go into the 9 circles of hell, that's like the treachery, the fraud, all that stuff, right? And you saw that yesterday. But that's your intestines. You have like 6 sphincter muscles. Even though there's 9 circles of hell, you flip it upside down. I mean, then you can go through all the different 9 circles. But those sphincter muscles are what releases the things that could cause a person to be committing fraud and gluttony and greed and all that stuff, right? So really, heaven is like either resting in peace as alive or dead, or just, being at peace. Okay? Resting in peace alive and just being at peace, or being dead. And so that's what heaven is. It can be either way. You can have heaven on earth or you can have hell on earth. Okay? Death is just a cold day in hell. That's Neptune. That's where the planets, when you're furthest away from the sun, this is where I was looking for the information yesterday. I couldn't find it because I had it written in a specific way that didn't alert me that this is what it was. But low sodium diets puts people in the 9th circle of hell, treachery, or actually it's the 10th circle. Low sodium diets will put you in the 9th circle of hell, then getting to the center of hell, which is the 10th circle. Okay? So when you lack substance, you're always cold, underweight, malnourished, always dieting for vanity or politics, vegan, vegetarian. You are experiencing the 9th circle of hell, which is treachery, because you're on your way then to the 10th circle, which is the center of hell, where you're meeting Satan. So Satan is at the center of hell, below the 9th circle. Satan is being punished for betraying God and is therefore the furthest from God's light or sun or lack of salt. Therefore, the center of hell is freezing cold. The beating of Satan's wings blows the cold air into the 9th circle. So when you understand that politics, religion, and science are all conjoined together, and they're just finding ways to explain the same thing in a different way in allegory or in scientific terms, then you get the bigger picture. Then you understand the whole point behind the Catholic Church. So you understand the whole point behind different religions, why people are very Christian, because to them it's life. And that makes sense. Yes. When you take life and replace it with the word Christ, then you can start building stories and building character around the stories. But in a lot of ways, it does keep people distant from science. And so they're speaking stories, but not science. And it goes over people's heads and it becomes jargon. That's why I say if you are Christian and you understand this from a scientific point of view, start speaking in both languages, in both jargons, so you can reach more people than just your captive audience or you're preaching to the choir. Because yes, Christians who believe mostly the same thing will reinforce each other. Okay? But then there's still Christians and Catholics that die, and death is actually the ultimate sin. Okay? But that's the thing, is that's one of the main things that I want my Christian friends to do, is start speaking in scientific terms too, because they can expand their way to communicate to everyone around them. Okay, and so when energy is converted, substance is lost along the way. Okay, because that's the thermodynamics. And so that's the thing with adapting, mutating, reproducing, evolving, all of that, is that we are experiencing then right now with this virus, is that there's so much substance being lost during these conversion processes, and people aren't filling in the gaps. They aren't resetting their body and then recoding with the food supply. They're just trying to stop the energy with the mRNA and with all their different remedies. And so then, yes, they fall into the 9 circles of hell and then eventually end up hanging out with Satan, so to speak. Okay. And so it is about feeling pain, of course, and filling the gaps. instead of taking evolution or instead of taking therapeutics to attack your evolution. So the thing is that being in a cure state is great temporarily for the government. Okay, remember, in California, they said that they have knocked down the infection rate, which, okay, is great. You know, their intention is not to have everyone evolving and have all this sickness and people dying because they can't handle the sickness. So I get it, why they want everyone on the same page. But what happens when you have everyone on the same page in a dynamic environment is that the lifespans will become shorter and shorter. Because when you get someone in a cured state, they're still activating their immune system because they're still around other people. And they're around, you know, and they're also too, you're not like closing the borders. It's not like, you know, your kids and your friends in those states that have a lot of the same thought process and everyone vectored isn't going to go being in contact with someone who isn't. They're still going to have an activation sequence because they're around someone who is evolving, but they won't maybe die from someone else's evolution, which I know is the point. But then you still are shaving off, you know, years and years of people's lives because you haven't taught them how to go and fill in the gaps and evolve. You only taught them how to mitigate pain and take therapeutics like mRNA to attack at the evolutionary level, at the micro level. Okay? And so being in a cure state is great temporarily for the government because they can control your incline and decline, but it's not great for the individual person. They don't get to realize their full potential when they're dying before 100. And then they don't get to evolve and maybe change their predispositions and change their future, because when you're being cured in the state of a deficit, you'll be suffering your whole life trying to climb out of a hole that the government keeps trying to stuff you back into, as well as your friends and family. Because you know your friends and family are going to keep reinforcing the same BS. Oh, you're communicable. You got to go get this. You got to go do that. And you got to take this therapeutic and that therapeutic. So the third law of thermodynamics is keeping things in a cure state of decline, and that is for maximum control. So the only way a person who doesn't have to be vectored or in a cured state can move around in a society is if everyone in society was in a cured state, and so they weren't, you know, they weren't dying or reproducing, and that's gonna be impossible, right? Or they were so strong and the government was not and the environment was not dynamic, with no new viruses being released. So it means that you'd have to be in a relatively stable environment with no new viruses or no new people coming into the equation, and everyone's in a cured state, not dying or reproducing. Okay. And that's how someone can, like me, can walk around and not be afflicted or have to come home and recover from being around, you know, 5 people or 2 people. Because that's what's happening lately, is every time I go out there, I'm fine now. Look, I'm fine now. I got over that little exposure when I was out there, coughed it out, pooped it out, blooded it out, whatever, through my menses. Now I'm great. And now when I go out there again, if I do anytime soon, and get exposed to another variant, then I have to go and recover again. And I have to stay home and stay safe, right? Not be communicable to anyone else. And the process starts all over again. And that's what you're in for when you're on the J juice finally evolving, is that you won't be communicable unless you're exposed to someone who is evolving and sick and communicable, or dying and reproducing. Because reproducing is when you have cell replication, when you have mucus coming out. Okay, that's reproduction at the micro level. That's mitotic reproduction. Children are always reproducing. They're evolving because they're growing up. They're shedding old information and taking on new information, but they are also losing substance as they're growing up because the parents haven't taught them how to fulfill those gaps. And they also have predispositions. Okay, so yeah, so my whole point in this whole transmission is to have you understand how everything is related, that biothermal and geothermal are the same. What goes on Earth with, like, when it's raining, that's panspermia. When it's thunderstorming and all that activity and all, you know, just the hurricanes, that's, you know, that's like your body going through a major transformation. Okay. And so everything that happens in the universe and out there in the environment can be likened to what's going on in your body. And then, of course, all the diamonds, right, from high pressure over a long period of time is like you doing the J juice, and you do that whole time that whole time lapse type of thing where you speed up the diamond process and you apply it to someone that's on the J juice and they have some kind of constipation. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure in your gut when you're exposing yourself to a lot of energy, but it's needed because your body is energy. So much energy, you'll cannibalize yourself. Not enough energy, you become a jellyfish, Jabba the jellyfish. Too much energy, you become the crypt keeper. Look at people who are on their deathbeds after gone through all the chemotherapy and radiation and they can't eat, they can't sleep. They are more than a shell of themselves. They have no collagen. Their eyes are all sunken in. They're losing their hair. And so they have 1 or 2 pieces of hair. They're like so skeletal. And, a lot of older people are very scary. Very scary. They look like the things you see in horror movies. Well, that's when you have so much energy and you can't retain it. So the optimal is to find that balance. Even in a dynamic environment, you can find the balance. Not turn into Jabba the jellyfish or the crypt keeper. Okay? And so that's the whole point of J juice, understanding the balance. But yes, you must first feel the energy of the salt. You must recode your DNA. You must release. And that's when, someone has to determine if they're like obese. Can they, they can be on the J juice a little bit longer until they get to a specific comfortable size. And then they must code, because then at some point you'll be in a cured state. You won't feel anything. That's why people like the J juice, because eventually they do get into a cured state on the J juice, because J juice is a cured effect. It has the salt in it. So at first it's a catalyst to evolution. You feel all the different electrical impulses and you feel the symptoms. People are like, oh my God, that's what people were getting all on me a couple of years ago, because it was a catalyst to evolution. It woke up latent viruses. And then over time, people weren't feeling anything at all. So they're like, okay, everything's great. They don't feel in their autoimmune disorders. They did get their cancer reversed and they're in remission. And so that's one of what were a lot of the testimonies. People were dealing with anal cancer, were dealing with brain cancer or lung cancer or whatever. And it was then the J juice was neutralizing it. It was lessening. It basically put them in a cured state. And then it also activated their other cells that were lethargic. And so there's definitely, a whole balance and a formula that goes along with it. That's why, JJ is really great for those with cancer, because it will neutralize the cancer cells and activate the other parts of their body to finally recode and release and all of that. But then you do so much J juice and you don't feel anything. And you're in a cured state, which is great for a certain amount of time, but not in this dynamic environment. And even in a non-dynamic environment, you don't want to be doing so much salt all the time, because you don't want to be taking away substance. You need to eat. And when you do J juice over a long period of time, you don't want to eat. That's why I lost so much weight, because I wasn't hungry when I was on the J juice. So I was skinny and I felt great because I can control my weight. I knew, and then I finally figured out what was going on. But you must eat. See, I had the cramps, but they weren't they weren't as bad as the last time, but they were pretty bad this time. And there was a lot of pressure because I was also exposed to a virus too. So there's a lot of things going on the last couple of days. And my dog too, when she had all of her seizures and peeing in the bed, and she's fine, but we were both going through an evolution. My husband was just like, what the hell? Having women in a house or females in a house is a lot of evolution. Luckily, she's not like a human female, or would be cycling together, and that would. But if we were both on the J juice mentality and cycling together, it wouldn't be as explosive as if you get a bunch of females together that are not doing J juice all cycling together. Then it becomes, oh my God. But no, so yeah. I'm going to go do my thing and write, but I wanted to show you that, yes, I am now in a cured state. I've got over that viral variant. It took me only a couple days, just coughed it out. And that's how your immune system is supposed to work. When you feed your body, you're not in a cured state of decline. And you don't have to be out there. If you have to be out there, then you will deal with it. You'll figure it out. John Oakes understands what's like being out there, because he has to be out there, and he feels all the different variants, and he's raising kids and breadwinner. And oh my gosh, so some of you guys have a lot more on your plate. And so I give you a lot more kudos. I swear I do. because you have to deal with everything that everyone deals with that wants to be in a cured state, but you're choosing to deal with it, and you know what you have to do, and you're balancing it all out. And so I just give you guys a lot of kudos that are out there. But now you understand what it's like. That yes, now I'm not communicable. I'm fine. My mucus is all out. My poop is all out. Everything is great until I get in contact with another freaking variant, and then I'll go through the process again, and I know what's going on. And that's fine. But that's what you must recognize, is that if everyone out there is dying and reproducing, they're going to be communicable. It is, and you can give them all the vectors in the freaking world, but you can't stop evolution. People try to stop evolution. They try to stop life. You can't stop life. That's why there's antibiotic resistance. That's why the vectors don't work over a long period of time. They wear off because life wants to freaking live. You can't have your immune system programmed to attack evolution on a continuous basis, or guess what? You have the exotic diseases, which is basically a person at a deficit. That's all the inserts. That's all the deficits of a person when they have their immune system attack itself because they don't want to feel pain or evolution. And so that's why biotech gets such a bad rap, because they are stifling people's evolution. But the people who think that the therapeutics are bad are also then using the herbs and the ivermectins and all the remdesivir and the turmeric and the honey and the cannabis and all that stuff and the alcohol and the drugs. And so they're doing the same thing that these therapeutics are doing in a different way. But no matter what, you both, the holistic and the allopathic, all the therapies in the world are suppressing people's evolution or releasing energy and not replacing the energy being released. And that's the other side of it. That's all the massage therapy and the Reiki and all that, the pressure points and the acupuncture and the playing with the crystals and throwing organite at people and all that stuff. That's all the same stuff. You're either suppressing energy or releasing it and not replacing it. But no one is really understanding how to retain the energy and release it in a balanced way so you don't look like the job of the jellyfish or the crypt keeper at the end of the line. Because there is no end of the line. It's just constant evolving and constant adapting to a dynamic environment. But the money is in suppressing people's evolution, and that's where the greed comes in. They don't care if someone's life is on the line, so as long as they get their money. And that's what I see out there all over Facebook, is people are making so much money off of social capital and currency capital on trying to stop the energy, stop the pain. And yeah, anyways. All right, I'm going to go. Bye.